Hello guys, welcome to another video, and today we are watching 5 most disturbing caving videos by none other by Chilling Scares. And this, again, I want to watch this, and I'm not alone because it's scary and I want to have nightmares. Well, I did have a nightmare, but not because of these videos, okay? It's something else. Otherwise, I wouldn't be recording this video and reacting to it, now would I? Anyway, enough of that. Without further ado, or waiting, we're getting into it.
On May 6, 2019, YouTuber Connor Kelly posted a video of him exploring an abandoned McCoy gold mine in the Nevada desert. However, what was supposed to be nothing more than a fun adventure with his family quickly turned into a disturbing experience, one that would likely stay with the group for the rest of their lives.
Of that sound.
The exploration of this mine started off quite normal, with the group staying silent to avoid causing an accidental cave-in, as seen by the text they put on screen. However, after about a minute and a half of treading deeper into the mine, Connor noticed something strangely reflective on the path ahead.
What is it? Notice something reflecting back at me.
So, do you see that reflection? I'm trying to...
The rocks is very loose. Well, obviously because they're on the ground. What are you talking about?
Oh,
Jesus, what?
Kid! Okay.
oh,
Oh, someone's...
Or human.
oh.
Someone died.
Wait, don't move, Wyatt.
What they found reflecting back at them was a shoe, amongst many more, in a massive pile with random bones scattered throughout.
That's a bone right there.
Bro had a shoe.
Actually, there's quite a few bones in this.
What made this pile even more odd was the sheer variety of shoes on display. Many of them were clearly very modern, while some were models that were released over 30 years ago. How could such a random assortment of shoes end up in an abandoned gold mine in the middle of nowhere?
Oh, that's a bone!
Things took an even darker turn when the group ventured further into the cave and found a bunch of bones, including a relatively intact spine.
Shoe!
So this is water flow. It is
So
getting
like there's a
So
bone
we-
poking
yeah,
out
we
of the
can't test
shoe.
this.
Someone, there's a bear or something.
By this point, the group was growing
Still water?
increasingly unsettled
Yep,
by these
still
disturbing
water.
discoveries, prompting
I
them
don't
to
like
leave the
the
cave as
idea of
quickly as
swimming through
possible.
still water, man.
And that's
I
where
don't
the
wanna
original
die.
video ends, without any explanation or resolution. Connor didn't provide any more information in the video's description or in the comments. He posted 4 more videos after this, but none of these videos included any updates on the disturbing encounter either. So, what's
they're
going on here?
traumatized.
One of the first things that comes to mind
Look
is
at
that
that, there's
this
a
mine was the
bone right
collection
there
spot for
in
a
that
serial
shoe.
killer. This would explain both the shoes and the bones. A top comment on the video also backs this theory, stating, "If you ever listen to the Missing 411 videos, you know shoes are a major component of missing or abducted people. This sent chills down my spine." Which is true. A statistical analysis of the Missing 411 data shows that over 15% of the cases involve absent shoes. However, this theory isn't entirely likely. For starters, I couldn't find any news reports regarding this mysterious pile of shoes, which is odd since, judging from the number of shoes, this supposed killer would have had hundreds of victims. If this pile had such a violent history, it probably wouldn't go unnoticed.
It's
by the
probably
media.
that Golden State
More importantly, many people on the internet agree that the
From
bones in the
last
video
video, like-
are not human. The group in the video reaches the same conclusion when looking at the bones for the first time.
No, it looks like a cow.
So it's either like an animal that was
Wait,
used to live there and now.
Put simply, the odds of this being a serial killer trophy cave are very low. But given the animal bones scattered throughout the area, it's possible it was the feeding spot of a predator like a mountain lion. Though, while that might explain the bones, it
That's
offers no
actually
clues about
so
the pile of
much
shoe.
worse. That's actually so much worse because whatever the predator killed them, they dragged their bodies into this cave where it used to live, and start eating the rest of the remains, leaving the bones there. Like, That's actually really crazy.
shoes. One theory I haven't seen anyone else
That's
bring up is that the
crazy.
shoes might have ended up there because of flooding. You see, the McCoy
Flooding.
mine where the video was filmed is located in Lander County, and from what I can find, that area is quite prone to flooding. So it's entirely possible that someone dumped their sneaker collection in the middle of nowhere to get rid of it, only for it to be carried in the abandoned mine with rainwater. A mountain lion could have moved in later, which would explain the bones. The only proof I have of this theory is that the ground in the deepest part
I'm
of the
still
mine
firm
is
on
extremely
the
wet
whole
and has
thing
water
with
flow
the
marks leading
whatever
into
lived
it.
there,
Other
mountain
than that,
lion
it's
or
pure
whatever.
speculation.
Dragged-
That said,
killed
another
somebody,
potential explanation
a lot
for
of
both the
people,
bones and the shoes
dragged
is
their
that Connor
body.
placed them there himself in hopes of creating a viral video.
Why
People
would
on the
anyone
internet have
would
pointed
be...
out that the bones in the video are a bit too clean for something left in a muddy cave by a predator. Some
It's
have
only
also
recent.
claimed that a few of the bones look like they're inorganic fabrications. Another inconsistency in Connor's video is that he and his group keep claiming that all the shoes in the pile are kid-sized.
There's no adult shoes in there. There's no adult shoes.
He even mentioned that in the video's title, which reads, "Kids' Shoes and Bones Found in Abandoned Mine." Now, while that makes an already creepy situation even more disturbing, it's simply not true. There are plenty of adult-sized
That's a
shoes
lot
visible
of-
in this pile.
I guess they're just
Unfortunately,
really
I
bad
doubt
at
we'll ever
telling
know what happened here
what
for sure.
shoe- what
It's
their
been
shoe
6 years
size
since the video was
is.
uploaded, and as I mentioned earlier, Connor has vanished completely from the internet ever since.
Yeah, because they are one of the victims now, joining in the mass pile of shoes over there.
Action Adventure Twins is a YouTube channel run by brothers James and Edward. The duo has been exploring dangerous and
James and
cramped
Edward,
caves
okay.
since early 2020. Yet, despite their combined experience, one of them almost lost his life back in 2022. In January of that year, the two decided to explore the popular Petty John's Cave in Georgia. They had already explored parts of this
Wait, are
maze-like
they
cave
talking-
multiple times before, and had even found an underground waterfall during one of their expeditions. Put simply, they were pretty confident in their ability to navigate through this
Isn't
cave.
that like one time?
But unlike their
Not one
previous
time.
ventures, this time they were going to
Breakdown
tackle one of
in
the
a
hardest
cave.
sections, the aptly
Nervous
named Nervous
Breakdown.
Breakdown, referring to how cavers feel when going through it. Things started off just as expected, with the pair going through the narrow and claustrophobic entrance to reach the
Yikes,
first
man.
open area of the Petty John's Cave.
How do you? How?
Whoa, entrance room.
However, it didn't take long for the cave to begin closing back again, forcing the two to squeeze through tiny passageways. But that was only the beginning. After about 25 minutes of crawling through increasingly tighter spaces, they reached the first big obstacle, a muddy room with a narrow and steep hole in the middle. They had to carefully walk around this hole to progress. A single slip and falling into the narrow hole
You're
and possibly getting
gone.
injured. And given the lack of safe footing around the hole, it would have been near impossible for the other person
That
to pull
is
them out.
really scary.
After successfully navigating around this obstacle, they finally arrived at the entrance to Nervous Breakdown. Unfortunately for them, things weren't looking good. The area
no.
surrounding this entrance had collapsed some time ago, making it very difficult to figure out the path ahead. After looking around for a bit, Edward eventually found the real entrance and was excited to go in. He genuinely couldn't wait to
no.
find out what was
Oh,
down
no.
there and began his descent, leaving his brother behind in case something bad happened. What he didn't realize was that this was about to be one of the worst decisions he'd ever make. Because after descending for a few minutes, Edward called for his brother only to be met with complete silence.
I found a rope.
Oh, you're alone.
I don't hear James anymore.
You better go back up there.
In other
Rope or
words,
not,
Edward was
it's
now
just a
lost
rope.
in an unknown section of the cave without any means of
no.
contacting his brother. At first, he tried to
He
stay
got
calm and
lost?
continued his descent, hoping to find James before long. However, after staying separated for over 30 minutes, the realization set in. He knew panic was the fastest way to make a bad situation worse, but at this point, he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of unease.
I'm scared for this guy. I'm anxious for this guy right now.
James! James!
Where did he go?
It's
Can
been
you
like
get
30
back?
minutes since I last saw him. I don't even know where I'm at. I tried to go back to the last place I saw him. and everything just looks the same.
Oh no.
It's just a
Oh no.
jumbo
It's a
maze.
maze. That's exactly what I was thinking. It's a maze.
We should have never split up.
You shouldn't
After
have.
calling out to James many times with no luck, he decided to retrace his steps and find the way back. Unfortunately, he had underestimated the difficulty of the maze he was about to enter. Every direction looked the same. The narrow passages and jagged walls
That's
made
why
it
you always
impossible to
bring
tell where he
something
had come
with you,
from.
and you could
To
just
top it
drop
all off,
or
his situation
use
was
that
getting
item
worse
as a
with each step he
landmark.
took. If he went the wrong way, he could easily wedge himself into a passage too tight to escape, or worse,
Oh, no.
plunge into a hidden drop-off. This is the true horror of caving. Even if he didn't injure himself, he could have just as easily wandered around aimlessly until his body gave way to exhaustion, leaving him lifeless in a cold,
This is like
rocky
that one
crevice.
movie where people were
The
on the
footage of
ground
him
and it's
excitedly
like
dropping into the nervous
stuck
breakdown
there.
entrance would have ended with
And
the
then people
camera
died
recording
one by
his
one. I
descent
don't know
into
how, but-
confusion, fear, and eventually silence. Fortunately, that wasn't the end of his story. After going in loops for a while, Edward spotted a single piece of tape he saw on his way down.
Oh. The tape. Yeah. Okay, this tape looks familiar. Oh,
Tape.
this has got to
Tape.
be the way.
Did you put tape or was it there?
I'm getting close.
Are you?
James! Still nothing.
Oh no.
This unexpected clue turned out to be exactly what he needed. It helped him regain his bearings and finally head in the right direction. Finally, he heard the best sound he could have heard in that moment.
Oh, thank goodness.
James! Oh. You're over here? Oh. Dude. This place is a maze, man.
Oh, hey, I see your light.
Dude. I thought we were never gonna see each other. Dude, I know.
And then something goes around and
The
grabs
two
him and
stayed
starts
together
eating
for the
him
rest
as
of
he
the
gets-
expedition and made it out alive
screams
without
bloody
any major
murder,
injuries. They're still exploring caves on YouTube, but now with a lot more caution.
Yeah, have some like colored, very high saturation tape or something.
In January of 2014, a group of cave explorers decided to conquer the Lost John's Cave in Lancashire, England. It's a vast cave network that spans a length of nearly 3 miles, or 4.8 kilometers. The known deepest section of this cave also goes down a staggering 690 feet, or 211 meters. Most members of this group had been spelunking for years, and like most other cave explorers, were quite confident in their skills. They had also done their research and mapped out their route in advance. But the truth about caving is, when things go wrong, no amount of planning can save you. Even the most experienced and well-prepared explorers can find themselves in
What? It was
terrifying
raining?
situations.
Oh, no.
Which is
Rain is
exactly
the
what
worst
happened to
enemy.
one of the members of this
Oh.
group, named Bob Johnson. The expedition
Bob
was going quite smoothly in the
Johnson,
beginning, with the
okay.
group using the equipment they brought with them to continue safely. That is, until
Bob.
they reached a section of the cave called the Tube. It was an unusually
Tube.
narrow section that required the cavers to crawl on their stomach. And to make matters worse, it was also partially submerged in water, making it difficult to both see and breathe. Despite these harsh
Is that muddy
conditions,
wa-
the group decided to
Ooh.
move ahead. The slimmest member of the group went
are you
first
guys-
and successfully made it to the other side without much
What are
trouble.
you doing?
The next person, however, wasn't as fortunate. This was Bob Johnson, the man we mentioned earlier. His crawl through the tube wasn't off to a good start, as he was already having issues with the comparatively wider sections of the passage.
This is why you shouldn't be fat. Oh no.
He then somehow managed to reach the tightest part of this treacherous
How?
section, but that's where his luck ran out.
No. 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 Oh. What? Help him.
He was completely stuck from the waist down, and any attempt
Oh
to
no,
free himself only
because
made
of
the
him.
situation worse.
Everybody's going to drown.
Now, being stuck in a narrow cave like this is extremely stressful on its own. The walls close in on you, and every movement feels like it's pushing you further into the tight space. Panic sets in as you realize just how little room you have to maneuver,
What?
and with each failed attempt to free yourself, the fear intensifies. But as if the confined space wasn't enough to make his heart race, Bob now had to contend with something far more terrifying, the rapidly flowing water. Water makes any caving venture 10 times worse. In a dry cave, even if you're stuck, you still have time to think and plan your escape. But when water starts to rise, the situation shifts from bad to life-threatening. The feeling of
And
water...
not to mention, it's running water. It's running water. The reason why I think it would be bad is because if he plugged up the whole tunnel, everybody inside, not only him, would drown. That's what I would think.
Water creeping up.
I'm too fat, and I still go on caving. Why, John?
Around you in an already claustrophobic space is a nightmare on its own. The real danger with water, however, is that you have mere minutes before drowning becomes a very real possibility. Bob knew this possibility all too well. He gave his all to free himself. Unfortunately, the water was quickly filling up his suit.
You need a pickaxe. You should bring a pickaxe. Like, just start, like, hacking it away, like, something.
Making it even more difficult to squeeze through. But when the situation seemed hopeless, one of the members had an idea that ended up saving Bob's life. Instead of pushing forward, the members behind him tried pulling him back, and it worked.
I mean, that's what you should have done.
This? Yeah, it looks tight. Billy, I get it. Pull it!
Bob was finally free, though his troubles weren't over. He later revealed in a comment that him and the two members who pulled him back had crawled for another 3 hours to get out of the cave from a different exit. This incident also left him traumatized to the point where you can't even watch this video without becoming anxious. From what I can find, he scaled back on caving and picked up a much safer hobby in cycling, and now appears to be doing just fine.
Good. At least he's safe now. I like that. I like that.
On the 7th of September 2024, the Action Adventure Twins YouTube channel posted a video exploring a mysterious cave someone found on their property. This is the same channel we talked about earlier, where the two brothers got separated and almost lost their lives in the maze-like cave. They've learned their lessons since and approached this one with far more caution. But with an entrance as life-threatening as this one, even the best precautions could have proven to not be enough.
What a
So the guy
landmine!
dropped us off halfway up the hill, and he doesn't know anybody who's been down this thing, but we were at the cave. He says he threw a rope down it with a rock and it was 200 feet deep before it stopped. So we got this stick here. We're gonna see if our rope reaches.
You're going to go down that? Bro,
It's still...
you fall off?
Oh, you were right, it kept going.
This alone is enough to terrify most people, with one person stating, "This channel has given me a new fear about walking in the woods."
That's sad. That's like I would assume 2 to 4 feet.
The fact that you could
deep.
just slip and fall
Not
down a
even
hole
that.
like that is insane. Now anytime I go anywhere, I wonder how many massive voids are right below my feet that I could fall into at any moment. But that didn't deter Edward and
drop
James.
dead.
They quickly secured their rope to a
Edward
nearby
and
tree
James are the
and began
bravest
descending
souls.
into the steep cave. What they found inside was nothing short of breathtaking. That tiny opening gave way to a vast chasm.
Wow.
Yeah. This is a big one, man.
However, before they could fully take in the beauty of the cavern, things took a dark turn. Just seconds into the cave, the two
How do you
discovered
get
what
out?
looked like human remains scattered throughout.
That's comforting. Human bones, huh?
They found the catacombs.
There's like a
Or
little
people that
shrine
got
of
trapped.
There's like, oh, that's a cranium.
Dude, is that a human?
Nah,
They caved in. There was a cave in.
Round.
Yeah, that looks human, man.
That's the
That
skull.
doesn't necessarily make. I don't know. I'm not a bone
I don't know.
expert.
From there, they continued exploring the cave as it kept getting bigger the further they went into
So,
it.
I guess
They also
people were
discovered
down
old
there.
caving
They just
equipment
didn't
like
know
ropes
how
and
to get out.
harnesses already secured to the walls, a detail that only deepened the mystery surrounding the bones they had found earlier. If they
Oh. I would assume they're either hikers or rescuers or something like that. So there was an incident here that costed people's
Did
lives.
belong to a person, as the
That's
two
sad.
suspected. It was possible they belonged to a previous explorer. This explorer likely had an accident and died in the cave without ever making it out. On their way in, they did find scattered bones right below the entrance. These were likely the remains of people who accidentally fell into the otherwise unassuming hole. However, the bones they found
I
further
don't
east...
even want to think about that. What if it is like a group of people that just were playing around, they find this, and they just fell to the death. I can imagine it now, like a group of teenagers play around, play hide and seek. One of their friends thought, "Oh, there's a nice little hiding spot down here. I might as well hide it in there." And then he slides down, not knowing there's,
inside were too far from the
He was
entrance
going
to have
after
belonged
that.
to someone who simply fell in. It's also possible that these remains belonged to the victim of a deranged killer. Someone who either had ended a person's life within the cave, or maybe threw the person into the hole and later dragged their body further into the cave. Some people, however, weren't convinced and accused the brothers of faking the whole thing, especially since the
How
way
do you
Edward and
fake-
James handled some of these remains felt a bit too casual. That said, while YouTubers faking these finds to get a viral video isn't uncommon, this one turned out to be true. The video received several comments from experts confirming that these remains were indeed real and human, with one such person writing, "My girlfriend and I are watching from Canada. We're both paramedics, definitely a human femur and a human cranium. But this raised an even bigger question. When did the owner of these bones pass away? If they disappeared into the cave in the last few
owner of the
decades,
bones.
this
You mean the person, owner of the bones? So just like a crazy old white man, just old white guy, just like chuck his bones. Just chuck his bones down there and never bothered to pick them up. And he wants to put each single bone in a specific spot to really decorate the
This
cave.
discovery could end up cracking an unsolved case. I ended up contacting the action-adventure twins to see what they had to say or if they had made any police reports afterwards. We ended up contacting the authorities about the bones. They were determined to be human and were apparently a Native American that either slipped and fell into the pit cave or was
Oh.
thrown in there after death and are
A
2,000
Native
years
American
old.
is crazy.
While this did rule out the possibility that these bones belonged to
2,000
someone
years
more
old.
recent, the despair of whoever ended up in that cave alone 2,000 years ago is just as impossible to ignore. They likely fell into the cave, somehow survived the fall, and ended up starving to death while looking for a way out.
That's so sad.
On October 28, 2004, 50-year-old Australian airline pilot and scuba diver David John Shaw broke the world record for the
Okay.
deepest successful dive in history. He achieved this by reaching a depth of 270 meters in Bushman's Hole, one of the deepest freshwater caves in the world. The sole purpose of this dive was to break the record. However, when he reached the bottom, he found something that stopped him in his tracks. He found the body of Dion Dreyer, a 20-year-old scuba diver who died in that cave 10 years ago. Since humans start sinking after a certain depth, Dion's body never floated back to the surface. Given the extreme difficulty and danger of diving this deep, any plans to retrieve his body were also cancelled at the time of his death. However, a plaque in his name was installed near the diving point of Bushman's Hole, which is how Dave knew what he was
Found
looking
his
at.
body.
After staring at the body in shock for a few seconds, Dave immediately got closer and tried to retrieve Dion. Unfortunately, after a decade in the water, his tanks were firmly stuck in the mud. More importantly, Dave had already spent too much time at that depth. Staying any longer would have been fatal. So he decided to tie a line to Dion's body and return to the surface with the newfound information.
Wasn't very steep. And when I saw the body over to my left, I thought, oh, that's the end of going deep. So just tied my line to it. And by then I was, well, we won't discuss that. So I just left my line.
The news of Dion's body being discovered spread quickly, eventually culminating in Dave talking to his parents and promising to retrieve it. After a couple months of preparation, the next dive was scheduled for January 8th, 2005. Unfortunately, Dave's heroic attempt to bring closure to Dion's parents ended in a catastrophe far worse than anyone could have imagined. Cave diving, aka underwater cave exploration, is far more dangerous than regular spelunking. The divers have to manage their oxygen levels at all times, avoid often sharp rock formations, and explore the cave system in a far darker environment because even the brightest flashlights aren't as effective underwater, all while making sure they don't get lost.
Bro, we need
Add in
a
the immense
goddamn
pressure
laser.
of 270 meters of water above, it becomes an almost insurmountable challenge, one that only a handful of people on the planet are capable of overcoming.
Yay! We're gonna drown ourselves for a dead body, man. No. Why? All this effort for a body. I guess it would make a good closure and all that, but you know, that's
So,
sad.
everything needed to be perfect for Dave's operation to succeed. He worked with police
Everything has to go
divers,
right,
the defense
perfectly
force,
right.
and medics to ensure everything went smoothly, and they planned the dive second by second. According to the plan, Dave would use the line he tied earlier to reach Dion's body. After cutting it loose and putting it in a special body bag, he would begin his descent. This descent would have taken around 12 hours to avoid decompression sickness. So instead of holding on to Dion's body the entire time, Dave would pass it along to his longtime friend Don Shirley at 220 meters. Don would then hand it over to support divers located at various depths and keep checking on Dave for any issues. Sadly, this is not how it went. An hour and a half after the dive began, the surface crew received an ominous message from the support divers, claiming that they hadn't seen any activity from Dave or Don. Shortly after, another message reached the surface. This one was from Don, stating that he's seeing Dave in the distance, and he's not moving.
Don's okay. Don's okay. Dave's looking okay.
While this message was making its way to the surface, Don tried to reach Dave himself. He exceeded his target depth, which resulted in his rebreather controller imploding. This also led to him suffering from oxygen poisoning and vomiting while 220 meters under the water. Fortunately, he managed to keep hold of the line and was eventually pulled out of the water still breathing. Dave, however, didn't make it. But when rescue teams pulled out his body, they made a shocking discovery. Dion's body was attached to the recovery line as well. Following the recovery, investigators looked at the footage captured by the waterproof camera mounted on Dave's head. This is what they saw. Though I should mention, I couldn't find the raw footage from that camera. The only clip of it online is narrated by Don himself, Dave's best friend who we just talked about who almost died trying to save his life. The footage shows Dave moving alongside the line to find Dion's body, and then trying to put it in the bag. Unfortunately, this is where the plan started falling apart. Dion's body was unexpectedly loose from the mud and was moving around uncontrollably. Dave tried to complete his mission despite this, only to end up getting tangled in the line.
This line is just getting everywhere because this body is floating. It's not stuck. Everything's moving. Right. Light gets caught on the line there. Move it out the way. Still got a nice bright line.
All this effort caused him to
What?
neglect his gauges, resulting in Dave feeling the effects of nitrogen narcosis, which include poor judgment, trouble concentrating, and reduced muscle and nerve function. Put simply, he lost everything he needed to survive at that depth. He tried to cut the tangled line, but the lack of coordination made it near impossible. As he was struggling to stay conscious, the last thing he saw was
That's
the
actually
terrifying view
so
of Dion's
sad.
lifeless face mask staring back at him. Shortly after this, Dave passed away. The only silver lining was that the tangled line kept Dion's body close to Dave, allowing him to successfully complete his mission by recovering the body, only at the cost of his own life.
Damn, dude. It took everything he had. He gave everything up so people could finally have their closure. Wow. Anyway, guys, that would be it for the video because that was crazy. That was actually really crazy. Shout out to Chilling Scares. I'm not gonna do caving at all. Otherwise I would die. But yeah, this was a scary video. Not scary, this is really chilling. It's just really, it just gave me the chills. It felt like I was watching a horror movie. Some of these videos anyway. Yeah. Until next time, guys. Dancing Dead out.